Good morning. Thank you for joining us here at the Yes We Can Center. And I would be remiss if I did not compliment my good friend and colleague, former Supervisor John Kamen, who was a supervisor here when this was built. Let's give him a round of applause. Very honored to welcome all of you here today for what is an incredibly exciting day for Long Island. For all of you who have helped make this possible, thank you. We know you know how important this day is for our region and frankly for the state as a whole, because we know how important Long Island is to our economy in the state and to our well-being here. Before we move any further, I want to just recognize a number of our colleagues who are here and officials who have helped make this day possible. First, the Chief Development Officer for the MTA, and please hold your applause. I have a little bit of a long list here, so hold your applause to the end. Chief Development Officer for the MTA, Jano Lieber. President of the Long Island Rall Road, Phil Eng. The Director of the New York State Budget Division, Robert Mujica. Senator Elaine Phillips. Assemblyman Michael Montesano. Assemblyman Tony D'Urso. Town of Hempstead Supervisor, Laura Gillen. Town of Oyster Bay Supervisor, Joe Saladino. Town of North Hempstead Councilwoman, Anna Kaplan. The President and CEO of the Long Island Association and REDC Co-Chair, Kevin Law. President of the Long Island Federation of Labor, John D'Urso. And the Sheet Metal Workers International Association, the United Transportation Union, Anthony Simon. And I'll take one break to say thank you to Anthony and all the men and women of labor for the great job that they have done here. Truly, including Matty Arasich, President of the NASA Suffolk Building Trades Council, John D'Urso. I broke my own rule, but when you're at the podium, you get to do that. I also want to thank the Executive Director of the Right Track Coalition, the former mayor of Greenport, and truly a visionary leader on these issues, Dave Capel. The President of Hofstra University and the other REDC co-chair, Stu Rabinowitz. Stu, thank you very much. MTA board members, Vinny Tessatori and Norman Brown, all of our local leaders who are here, all of our friends in labor are here. Thank you for what you do each and every day. And of course, I'm proud to welcome, and she'll be saying a few words in just a few moments, our great Nassau County Executive, Laura Curran. There you go. So as I said, this is an extraordinary day for Long Island. It is impossible for me, to overestimate the significance of this project to our economic future on Long Island. And I see another person here I want to recognize, Mitch Pally, MTA Board. Mitch, thank you very much, and Executive Director of Libby. There's a coalition that came together, Dave Capel, Nancy Rauch-Dezinas, Kevin Law, incredible job. But I will tell you this, in all of my time in public life, I've never seen a project that was more dead than this project, that was more significant, but brought back to life because of one simple thing: the leadership of Governor Cuomo. This is what leadership is about. This is what we should expect from our public officials and certainly for the highest office holder in the state. Somebody who will take on the challenges, take the difficult issues, because they are that significant and that important to the region. And that is exactly what the governor has done here and has done on every single issue facing Long Island, whether it is transportation, infrastructure, water quality, his leadership on our environment, or standing with us during our most trying, difficult times, providing the public safety resources we need to protect vulnerable children from criminal organizations like MS-13. Governor Cuomo has been here for Long Island every step of the way, but I will tell you what this day represents, we will be looking back on years from now, decades from now, and recognizing the significance of what the governor has done here, his leadership that has made this investment, third track, possible, and what it will do to create jobs, to create growth, to create prosperity and sustainability in the Long Island region, and how that ultimately will have such a positive impact on our entire state. I can't say enough about what he's done here, and it is my honor to welcome and introduce once again our great governor, Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Yes, we can. Yes, we can, and yes, we are. To your great County Executive, Laura Curran, let's give her a big round of applause. To the great County Executive of Suffolk County, Steve Ballone, let's give him a round of applause. To all the people who are working on this. Steve was very gracious in his introduction because I sent him the draft introduction. It said, be very gracious, but I'm sure he meant part of it. But this was very much a collective. Nothing like this happens without bringing a lot of people together to make it happen. And from the MTA and the LIRR with Jano Lieber and Phil Lang to the Assembly and the Senate who's here, they have to fund it, they have to live with it in their community, they had to be okay with it. To the men and women of labor who are going through hoops, when anyone questions the ability of union labor and why union labor, come look at the product and the quality that union labor is producing. Talk to Anthony, talk to Maddie, and they'll tell you why. But there is also something to what Steve was saying about the attitude. And this time in history, we need a different attitude. People are upset, people are angry, people are frustrated, people are frightened. A lot going on in the world economically, terrorism, people feel out of control, and people don't see enough progress. And those of us in government, those of us in leadership, the word is leadership. The word is to lead, to get something done. This morning, I was in Brooklyn, one of the poorest parts of Brooklyn. On the waterfront in Brooklyn, abutting these communities, is 3.5 miles of waterfront beach, 400 acres, okay? So you have all these dense, poor communities, and then right next to it, on Jamaica Bay, 3.5 miles of waterfront property, 400 acres, totally unused. And the community, for 25 years, was trying to say, can't we have access to this land? We're in these high-rise buildings, highest poverty, highest density, highest murder rate, highest negative health indices, 400 acres on the waterfront, can we have access to it? Well, we can't figure out how to do it. The federal government owns it. That's not a shot at the federal government. I'll take that shot later. Federal government owns it. It's managed by the city. It's supervised by the state. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Today we just opened the first and largest state park of its kind. We're taking those 400 acres and we're making it a state park. The point is, get it done. Get it done. That's the key in life. We know the problems, we know the solutions, but it's hard, but it's controversial, but this one doesn't like it, and this one doesn't like it, and if I do it, then I'm going to offend this one, and I'm nervous, and I'm scared, and get it done. There's nothing big that you're going to get done in life that doesn't come with risk. There is nothing that you are going to tackle that is worth tackling. That isn't going to be hard. Where when you have the first conversation, they give you the 57 reasons why you can't do it. That's life. We have to get better at saying, I understand the obstacles. I understand the risk. I understand the challenge. I don't care. We can do it. That's who we are. And that is the role that New York always played, by the way. You know when they talk about the New York arrogance? New York, you think you're a big shot, you're from New York, the New York swagger. There's something to that. Not me, but Tony Dorsey. But there's something to that. We were always the first. We always took on these big challenges on every level. Women's rights movement started here, civil rights movement started here, gay rights movement started here, labor rights movement started here. We built everything first and better. Brooklyn Bridge, George Washington Bridge, Verrazano Bridge, New York City subway system, 600 miles underground. We were always the first. We always led. The arrogance, the swagger was, of course we can. Maybe nobody else can, but we can, because we're New York. We have to get back in touch with that confidence in who we are and what we do. And this is a snapshot of that. Every president in modern history has said the same thing. Our infrastructure, transportation is crumbling. We're falling behind. Every other country around the globe is building and developing, and America's falling behind. They all say it. Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. And it's true in New York. Look at where we are. Fly around the world and then land at LaGuardia and tell me what you think. The federal government was supposed to act. It was supposed to act. They were supposed to act. This president takes office, promises a $1.5 trillion infrastructure plan. I said, great. Great. They said, what did you say? Governor of New York, different party than the president? I said, great. God bless him. That's exactly what we need, a $1.5 trillion infrastructure program. You know how much came through of the $1.5 trillion infrastructure program? Nada, niente, scata, zippo. Sometimes the president has a problem with the truth. Well, he did here again. But we're New York. We're not going to wait for him to come with the funding. We're going to make it happen. This state is building more than any state in the United States of America, $100 billion. And it is all across the board and all across the state. A new KOSCIUSZKO bridge, a new Goethals Bridge, MTA, a $33 billion investment, a subway action plan to get it up and going, a new LaGuardia airport, which, by the way, is going to be the first new airport built in this country in 25 years. Not since Denver has this nation built an airport. We're going to have a new LaGuardia air train, which means from Long Island, you can take the Long Island Rall Road to LaGuardia Airport. You don't even have to get into a car anymore. A new JFK airport, a new JAVITS convention center. It was state-of-the-art in 1984 when my father opened it. The other convention centers have now surpassed it. We're going to double the size of the JAVITS Center, and we're going to get some of the best international shows right back here in New York. Cashless tolling we did in less than a year. It works phenomenally well. It saves time, it saves traffic. Upstate New York, long neglected. New Rochester Airport, new Elmira Corning Airport, new Syracuse Airport, new Plattsburgh Airport, new Ithaca Airport, $27 billion in roads and bridges. the new infrastructure of the next generation, largest state commitment to renewable energy in U.S. history, $1.4 billion, green jobs, the green economy happening here in New York State. First state to have 100% high-speed broadband coverage from one end of the state to the other. That is the great equalizer and the great democratizer, and we're doing it here first. For Long Island, bold, aggressive plan, and it's going to start with the Long Island Rall Road. Why? Because it paralyzes Long Island. This is not 50 years ago. Well, I can take the Grand Central Parkway, or I can take the Northern State or the Long Island Expressway, or I can take the Long Island Railroad. The volume has increased. The population has increased. It is near paralysis. Long Island Railroad, 89 million commuter trips a year, 700 miles of track. And it has been stagnant for over 70 years. We have the same problem over and over again. These systems are antiquated. You have switches that are decades old. You have a power substation that is 40 years old. New York City subway system, we have subway cars 40 years old. We have electric switches that are 100 years old. What do you think is going to happen? They are going to break, and that's going to be a delay. And we live in this constant state of surprise. I am surprised that the switch broke. It's 100 years old. How can you be surprised? What did you think was going to happen? Subway car broke down. It's 40 years old. How old is your car? 40 years old is the subway car. Long Island Railroad is the same thing. Had a problem on the track. What happened? The ties are old, the binding is old, the switch is old, and old breaks. That's what happens. Old breaks. Old bodies break, old transportation systems break. Well, why haven't we been fixing it and modernizing and keeping up with it? Well, it's expensive, it's difficult, it's complicated, and it's one of those things that we said, we can't do it. Another day. Let somebody else do it. Well, the day is today, my friends. Our Long Island Railroad Transformation Plan, $100 billion, 100 projects, $6.6 billion. It goes from one end of the system to the other. It goes from the end point in Manhattan all the way through Long Island. Rather than ending in Penn Station and going through that torture, across the street from Penn Station, in the old post office building, we're building a new train station, which is going to be state-of-the-art. It's going to be called the Moynihan Train Station. It is going to be a magnificent experience. And rather than coming up through Penn, you can come up through this great new facility. It's under construction now. It's going to be done in 2020. We started construction about a year and a half ago. It's named the Moynihan Station in honor of Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, because he came up with the idea 30 years ago. And nothing happened for 30 years. Now it's going to happen, and that's going to be the end point. The most important systemic pieces of the Long Island Railroad transformation, double track and the third track. Double track has been accelerated. That's going to be completed this month. If it's not completed this month, if it is not completed this month, Phil Eng and Jano Lieber will be moving to Utah. I want you to know they're going to be opening a hunting lodge. It's very nice. I hope you will visit. The third track, I'm not kidding, Phil. Third track, we're going to break ground today. It's going to be completed in 2020. The third track, it's very interesting how this started. I was on a boat trip with County Executive Ballone and County Executive Curran, It was the same boat trip where Steve was throwing shucked oysters on me accidentally, but I don't like to bring that up. And Steve took me on the side on the boat, and he said, you know, Governor, I have a great idea that I have to talk to you about. I said, what is it? He said, a third track for the Long Island Rall Road, right at that difficult interchange where there's only 2 tracks and everything goes wrong. About 40% of the riders go through there. I said, wow. I said, that's a great idea, Steve. He said, yeah. I said, who gave you that? He said, I came up with it myself. I said, really? He says, yes, I study mass transportation on the side. I said, I never knew that. Oh, yes. He said, I charted all the delays on the Long Island Railroad. And I charted all the problems in the high-density areas, and it comes down to this one corridor. And if we built a third track where they have 2 tracks, we could eliminate many of the problems. I said, that's a really brilliant, impressive idea. I went back to the office and I said, you know, Steve Ballone's brilliant. He's got an idea, third track. We put it over here in 9.8 miles and we avoid all the delays. They said, who came up with the idea? I said, Steve Ballone. He studies mass transit on the side and didn't tell anybody. So they did a little research. 1949, Newsday wrote a story. Proposed third track should run between Hicksville and Floral Park. So maybe he's not an expert in mass transit, but he can read old newspapers. 1949 was the idea for the third track. 1949. This is 2018. What happened between 1949 and 2018? I mean, that is the point we have to think about. What happened? All talk for 70 years. What is the third track? There's a 9.8-mile segment of the main line between Floral Park and Hicksville. 40% of the Long Island riders go through there. There are only 2 tracks. It's very busy. It's congested. Any issue becomes a major delay. You have a problem in that area, it backs up everything, cascading delays, people stand in pen because there's a problem there. If the third track was so obvious, why did it take 70 years? Number 1, NIMBY. NIMBY is a problem all across the state, all across the country. It is an acute and chronic problem on Long Island. I think there's something in the water. I am not sure, but we're going to test. NIMBY is pernicious, but you can't let that stop you. And you know what the answer to NIMBY is? A smart plan that addresses the needs of the community. It can't just be, well, they don't want to do it, and therefore everything stops. We started talking about the third track. It was 57 no's over my dead body. No how, no way. Well, I understand that. First impression. Happens to me a lot in life. What do you need? How can we get past it? What problem do you have? Craft a solution to get past it. We have a new plan. It is a better plan. It's better than the old plan. It makes sense on a lot of levels. We signed MOUs with the relevant villages, and the MOUs help the villages as well as allow the third track. The third track, first of all, is going to be in the existing right-of-way. They had old plans where the third track would be a distance from the current track, which would then have affected new houses, different houses, etc. This is all in the existing right-of-way. If you bought a house in this area, you had a train track in your backyard. You're not shocked when you hear there's going to be a train track in your backyard because you now have a train track in your backyard. This will be on the existing right-of-way. Problems that those villages and communities had are going to be resolved. There are 7 street-level grade crossings between Floral Park and Hicksville. There have been fatalities. They are dangerous. There are backups. you can have a half-hour backup at one of these grade crossings. They have been a pain in the neck, and no one has done anything about them for a long time. We're going to close 2 of the grade crossings, and then we're going to build underpasses so all 7 grade crossings are gone. That's good for the communities. Covert Avenue in New Hyde Park, which is one of the most problematic, is going to break ground this year, is going to be finished next year. Another problem on the train-related delays is bridge strikes. The bridges were built too low, or the trucks grew, one or the other, doesn't matter. 88 bridge strikes just last year. Every time there's a bridge strike, everything stops, can be hours of delay. We're widening, increasing the height of the 7 bridges along the line from 12.5 feet to 14 feet clearance. That's what you need to make sure the trucks can pass by. All the villages had the same complaint. There's not enough parking. And people park, and they clog the whole downtown area, and then there's no parking for anyone else. Fine. We'll create 3,500 new spots and new parking garages. It's a win-win for everyone, for the villages, for the downtown areas, and for the commuters. Well, we don't want to hear noise from the tracks, but you have tracks already. We'll do noise abatement, which means it'll be even quieter than it is now. So we'll add a track, but it'll be quieter because we'll do the noise abatement. And that's what we're doing. First of all, new tracks that have dampening technology, so literally the train makes less noise on the track, sound-reducing walls, and most importantly, we're changing the basic systems. 20 new miles of track. It'll be new switches, new ties, everything new, reduce the number of outages. We are changing the power system to a new state-of-the-art. It'll be more reliable. It'll have more capacity. 7 new power substations, so it can power all 3 tracks simultaneously. It won't be where if one substation goes down, everything stops. We'll have redundant systems. And we're going to update the signal system, which is very often the problematic system in many of these delays, and we're going to put in a whole new signal system. We're also going to update the 30 passenger stations. Some of them are run down and just ugly and make it unpleasant. There's no reason. This is New York. We should do it right. We're going to update this 30 stations, 7 in this area that we're talking about. Best of all, it is happening. It is happening now. This is not a plan. It's not a vision. It's not a proposal that I'm going to send to a committee that's going to do a report and put it on a shelf. This is happening now. Here are the projects. Here are the timelines. They all finish by next year. 2019 is next year. Deadlines can't be moved. This is what I tell my staff. They say, we want to move a deadline. No, there's no concept of moving a deadline. That's why it's a deadline. You can't move it. The deadline for these projects is fall 2019, or Phil Lang and Jan Lieber are in Utah opening the hunting lodge. Well, how do we know government is going to do it? Because we're doing it differently than we've ever done it before. Learn the lesson of the past. Most important thing in life to know is to know what you can't do. Know your limitations. Government should not be building anything. Government does not do construction. It's not what government agencies do. The private sector does construction. The way we do this now is through what's called design build. Government will write the specs. This is what we need done. Put out the contract to the private sector. They bid on it. We have incentives for early delivery. We have sanctions for late delivery. And then we supervise the private construction. It works. It works extraordinarily well. It also works because we have a great partnership on Long Island. We have Nassau working with Suffolk. I'm old enough to remember the days where they thought they were 2 different countries, Nassau and Suffolk. and they wanted a passport when you went over the border. One county executive wanted a toll when you went over the border. You have enlightened leadership. They work together. They work together extraordinarily well because as goes Nassau, goes Suffolk, as goes Suffolk, goes Nassau. It's one region, it's one economy. They're both smiling. They're smiling about this project, and they're smiling as widely as they're smiling because I pay for the project and they don't have to pay for the project. And that's why they are so happy. Look how many teeth they both have when they're not paying. We're going to do a design build, private construction. The contract will go out. It's being designed now. Design build works. Saturday, we're going to open the largest infrastructure project in the United States of America. Largest infrastructure project in the United States of America. The Mario Cuomo Bridge across the Hudson River. It is on budget. It is on time. 4 years. 57 reasons why it couldn't be done. They talked about replacing the old Tappan Zee Bridge for literally 20 years. Literally 20 years. We can do these things. We can do these things. Learn the lesson of the past. Be smart. Do it right. But be bold. The future belongs to the bold. We need to make progress. We need to make progress now, and we are. We're going to open the Mario Cuomo Bridge. We're going to now break ground on the third track, and we're going to get it done too. The best is yet ahead. Just keep the attitude, keep the energy, keep the momentum. Thank you, and God bless you.
Please welcome Nassau County Executive Laura Curran.
So the governor asked what happened between 1949 and 2018. Well, I'll tell you. The governor was born, grew up, became the governor, and today we're breaking ground on the third track. That's what happened. It is always a pleasure to welcome Governor Cuomo to Nassau County, and thank you, Steve, for doing a great job opening up the program. And one of the reasons I very much enjoy welcoming our governor, besides the fact that he's paying for all of this, is that he gets that transformational infrastructure is the key to true economic development. He also gets that transit-oriented development, TOD, the jargon, is key to true economic development. And he doesn't forget the T in TOD, and that is what we're celebrating today. So I think I'm the one who's standing between this and the actual groundbreaking. I'm going to keep it short. I want to say thank you very much, Governor. This is fantastic for Nassau County. Second track is great for Suffolk County. And so together we will fight forward and be bold, because the future belongs to the bold, in case you haven't heard it before. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our program is now concluded. Thank you so much for coming.